Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal Pluto in the third house. The third house is the house of the mind. And we can also talk about communication with the third house. Gemini rules this house, and Gemini's ruler is Mercury, so it rules this house. So it's all about the way that we convey information to others and just express ourselves as well, but also how we absorb it. And that's what the mind is all about. So Pluto is the lord of the underworld and is this kind of I don't know if I should say a dark figure, but one of the rulers of Scorpio, along with Mars. And there's always something associated with with secrets and uncovering mysteries and, penetrating to the truth of something, but kind of going beneath the surface. And because Gemini rules this house, sometimes there can be this kind of a shallow type of, master. What's the phrase is jack of all trades and master of none, because Gemini is very into variety, is very versatile. And the third house can be kind of the skills that you attain and something like that. So that can lead sometimes to kind of gaining knowledge so that you can win at trivia, but it's not really information that you necessarily need or that is life changing. And Pluto has a very transformative kind of an effect on a person's life. Actually, I read somewhere that wherever Pluto is in the natal chart, in whatever house, is the area of greatest transformation for the person. So in the third house, it can be the way that one thinks. And a perfect example of this is somebody who follows a certain teacher. Maybe it could be a spiritual teacher or a life coach type of person, and they really become inspired by that person's teachings, and it transforms their own life, or that they become that type of person for somebody else, because that's also a possibility. When Pluto is in the third house, you are a deep thinker. You're not going to be somebody that is easily amused with small talk and that kind of way of communicating. Even if your sun is in Gemini and you have Mercury in Gemini, you might still kind of be more of a deep thinker, deep communicator, and be a little bit repelled by people who just kind of chatter away and don't really think about what they're saying. You have a very penetrative intellect, and so you like to approach things at a deeper level. This can make you a natural detective, and you have the ability to also to research, and those two things can go hand in hand when you're trying to uncover a mystery. By the way, before I continue, I just want to give a shout out to the website that I gained this information from, and it was great. I didn't even go somewhere else to kind of compile my list, of course, putting it in my own words. It's called astrologyk.com, so I recommend it if you're looking for this type of information. I've used them before, and they're really good. This is a placement of somebody. I thought this was funny. They mentioned, that the way I put it was able to ferret out information on others, but not keen on having it done to themselves. And this is kind of like what I noticed too with people who are Scorpios, because actually having Pluto in the third house is like having Mercury in Scorpio to some degree. And so it can indicate that type of a secretive mind. And what's so funny about these types of people is they can get you to tell your life story, but when you try to, ask them some questions, they're mum. Mum's the word. So that kind of thing can happen So in a way, you could say it might not be a one-way street with you and other people. You might be very reluctant to divulge, much about your own life, but you have somebody else telling you deep, dark secrets about theirs. And there's a great sense of concentration with this placement. I always think of Gemini as being kind of ADD and kind of the monkey mind. But Pluto adds gravitas to the third house. So that is going to give you a much more profound mind, but also one that is able to concentrate more easily. I didn't see this in the website compilation that I was looking at, the list that they compiled, but I would put conspiracy theorist. And I don't really like that term because it implies that it's all just, almost like it's fake or something like that. But definitely a suspicious mind. That was another thing that I didn't really see. I saw the detective, but I didn't see the word suspicious. There can be, that's a good point because, like Mercury and Scorpio, you might never believe what somebody tells you on face value. You may always think there's more to the story, and that could get you in trouble because if you are very suspicious and another person feels that you are not believing them, they may close off, but they also may be turned off to you altogether because people don't like to feel that they are under scrutiny, that they are believed to be doing something wrong. In a similar vein, or expounding upon the issue with, or the area with the being a conspiracy theorist, there are people who are, whether they're citizen journalists, investigative reporters, I mean, that could be a career. The third house can be the media. And if you're somebody who's attracted to that particular profession, you might really want to do stories that either kind of uncover the the scandals that are going on in government or wherever in corporate America or corporations in general. You might be wanting to do that. True crime could be something that you're really interested in, but also citizen journalists, because nowadays it's very hard to be in the media and actually uncover these things because there's so many corporate interests and other things that are going on. So I'm always amazed at the people like on Twitter or other platforms who are really, they say that they're digging and they're looking for these clues, they're looking for these details. It's amazing the way their minds work. So that's a similar vein to what I was referring to. But even for other professions besides an investigative reporter, a detective, like I had said, or a researcher, when you communicate, your words can be received in a very deep way that you can, maybe have a profound influence on others with your words. And I didn't see them mention writing, but I would, say that as well. So if you're like a fiction writer, your writing style may be quite intense, emotional, and really stay with the reader for a long time afterwards, versus something that's more light and not as profound necessarily. And you might even mix in some of the types of subject matters that are associated with Pluto. So with the eighth house, we could be talking about the occult, metaphysics, the secrets of the universe, whether this is fiction or writing nonfiction. This is the kind of thing that you might decide to write about, research and write about, but you may also like to read that kind of stuff. Also, reading mysteries or writing mysteries. I think I kind of touched upon this to some degree, but being secretive in your own speech, maybe you don't talk very much, but there's also the possibility of being very dominating in, conversations. And that's because Pluto, I'm assuming this, Pluto is associated with power, but it can be overpowering somebody, and maybe power struggles using communication in a way that where you try to dominate. This was very interesting. They used the term going in for the kill in communication. So the first thing I thought of was a trial lawyer, or somebody who is using their speech in a way to overpower others, and also to almost manipulate, or get somebody like really gripped by the emotion of whatever the subject matter is. So if you've ever watched a high power lawyer make their case, and sometimes, if there's like a famous case that you're watching or something like that, and they just keep people spellbound because of their ability to really just suck people into that drama. That could be something that you were interested in. My mouse just fell. Another thing that can happen that's almost like going in for the kill is having discussions with others where they use the term brutal honesty, which we all know that some people, they just will tell it like it is, and it can come across in a very insensitive way. But there's a reason for what they're doing, or what you're doing. You're doing this to like just let the chips fall where they may, because you really want to tell the truth. And if your Mercury is in Sagittarius, for instance, in this house, this may be something that you are very passionate about, that the truth is all that matters. And some of the subject matter can be upsetting to other people because it's unpleasant to them. And yet you might say, this has to be said, we have to clear the air. You have probably what would be considered an uncanny ability to be able to read other people's psychological makeup. So you can really take in another person's energy, if you will, or their patterns, and be able to just, diagnose them on the spot. I'm being just not, I don't know about facetious, but I'm being very general about that. I'm not saying you're literally doing it, but you can get a grasp on their psychological motivations, what they're all about, and that can be very good. And that might be another field that is of interest to you, is psychology. Now, one thing that they mentioned, which was very interesting, all of these are not going to apply to a person who has this placement, by the way. But one of the things that they mentioned was this mental breakdown, and I put that reboots the person's outlook on life and their mentality. That's how I am phrasing it. And the reason that they would say a mental breakdown, well, first of all, this is the house of the mind, but Pluto can tear things down. But this is a healing effect ultimately, because the person is going to be very, it's like reborn. In the tarot, the Judgment card is a card that is connected to Pluto, and one of the themes of the Judgment card is rebirth. And so sometimes someone has to have a breakdown in order to, it's kind of like putting their mind back on factory reset. And some of the modern spiritual teachers that you might be familiar with had some of these types of experiences. I think of Byron Katie being in a rehab facility when she had her spiritual awakening. And one of the things that happened to her was that she had amnesia. So she didn't even know, who her husband was and all this kind of stuff. So she went in there for an addiction to, I don't know if it was sleeping pills, but some kind of pills. So that kind of thing we could say is a type of mental breakdown in a sense, where the person can't go on anymore the way that they are. But that term nervous breakdown, I remember one time reading that it's just a catch-all phrase. So it can mean anything from some kind of a, if somebody is maybe they have a bipolar episode or something where they're very manic and they crash and they become very catatonic and they get admitted to a hospital, or some other reason like a spiritual awakening where all the circuits are overburdened and the person just fries out, and then they reboot themselves and it's like they have a rebirth. So it can be something like that. Because the third house can relate to your earlier years in school, you might have experienced bullying in school, either by your classmates or even teachers, especially if the teachers were very controlling, maybe suffered from abuse in the school by teachers or schoolmates. This is the house of siblings. I've also heard aunts and uncles and cousins, but because you typically will spend more time with siblings, it could be some kind of sibling rivalry, or having some kind of a sibling who was very controlling in your life, or conversely, somebody who was a sibling who was a very powerful influence in your life. Pluto can really have extreme differences, the two poles there. So either you have this kind of oppressive influence from a sibling, or they have a very powerful influence on you. Now, they did not mention this, but I might have read this somewhere else in the past, or I just also, just occurred to me, is the death of a sibling, because Pluto rules the eighth house of death. So in that situation, the influence may have been of a sibling, maybe even when you were 2 years old, and you've never really, you never even really remember that sibling, but it's almost like this looming figure in your life. Or, the death, is kind of this, the death of the sibling is like a turning point in your life when you saw things a lot differently. There can be power struggles with neighbors. The third house can be your local area and neighbors. And I didn't put this down, but I would imagine too, if you're civically minded, I would say be careful about the need for power in your local area, because Pluto can give a craving for power. And if it's abused, it can be somebody who might run for local government because they want to be kind of a, I was going to say like a petty tyrant that is able to control, their like little pond and feel important. And they just have this kind of almost obsession with dominating their local sphere. But your words can be quite powerful, and you can convey them very powerfully too if you're kind of a public speaker of any variety. So realize that, I think, would be a good piece of advice, realize how you speak. And they talk about like spells. Spells are things. I mean, I'm saying it has been said, about spells. If you think about it, spells are spoken. So when we are talking, are you, when you're talking to others, are you casting a spell with your words? Because Pluto can be associated, I think Pluto could be associated with magic, being the eighth house. I think the eighth house is associated with alchemy. So, understand that your words will probably carry a lot of weight, a strong vibration with other people. Don't abuse that power that you may have. It could be just your communication style is very effective, and that you have this power. Use it wisely. Maybe you would make an awesome life coach if other factors, you know, agree with that. Use your words for good so that you can help others rather than using it as a way to gain control is the way to go. So, thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a personal reading, the link is in the description box. Take care. Bye.